Hi everyone, I'm Freddie, and in this video I'll be going through some of the anticipated book releases that are coming out this year. Now, I'll admit, I am awful at keeping up with book release news. I always miss them and I find out way too late, and I should probably just sign up to all of the publisher newsletters. I'll get to it when I remember at some point. But yeah, I'm really bad at keeping up with any kind of news. Actually, I'm trying to do better, but we'll see. So most of these books I'll be going through today are fantasy. Some are from series where I'm fully up to date, where I'm anxiously awaiting the next release, while some are the beginnings of new series. And in case you've seen any of my early videos, yes, I did get a haircut. Cut off most of my hair and I'm loving it. I might fidget with it a little bit in this video because I don't have any styling products to hold it in place at all. So I'm still figuring out what to do with it, but I am loving it. So that's a good start. But on that note, let's just get straight into the book releases. So first off is a book release that I am highly anticipating, and I am not at all biased. Not at all, because the author is one of my very best friends in the world. But the book I'm talking about is the sequel to The Slettede Paradox by Sabine Hein. Now, I don't have an exact release date for the second book, but it is expected to come out this summer. And I have been getting a lot of snap updates from my bestie on the editing process, so I know it's well underway. Now, this is a young adult sci-fi story. It's very X-Files inspired. Basically, we follow Tia, whose sister gets abducted by aliens, and then we follow her in trying to find out what happened and getting her sister back. And I've thoroughly enjoyed this first book. It was thrilling from the beginning. There was a lot of humor as well, and I cannot wait for the second one because I've been hearing about it. I've been following the process a lot, and I've been hearing about it, and I can't wait to read it. So I'm very much looking forward to the summer when I can read the sequel to this book. I have a couple more books where the date is kind of unknown. So next up will be Isles of the Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson. This book is the 5th secret project book, and as far as I know, there's no exact date, but it is expected sometime this year. And as far as I know, it is in the Cosmere, and it's a follow-up to one of his short stories, which I don't believe I've read yet, so I'll need to read that first. This one. I don't know if you can hear her, but she's scratching at the rug under my chair. Why? Why right now? Must you? Just waiting for her to stop. I think she's done. Yeah, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And then next up, a book that's also unknown on an exact date, as far as I know, would be The Lord of Demons by Evan Winter. This is the 3rd book in The Burning, which starts with The Rage of Dragons. I absolutely love the first 2 books. This is basically a vengeance story. There's obviously dragons involved, and we follow Tao, who will basically do anything and put himself through anything in order to get his vengeance, and it's amazing. Now we'll be moving on to books that have, at the very least, expected release dates. Some of these are, of course, bound to change. Things happen, but these are the dates as far as I know. Next up, we have Faithbreaker by Hannah Kaner. This is the 3rd book in the Fallen God series, and it's expected to release on the 13th of March. The first book in this series was God Killer. In God Killer, we follow Kissen, who is a god killer who makes a living killing gods. I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but I really enjoyed the first 2 books. I'm looking forward to the 3rd one. I don't know if it's the last one planned. We'll see, but I'm looking forward to it. Next up, we have The Serpent Called Mercy by Roanne Lau. This is expected to release on the 25th of March, and this is a debut, and well, for one, the cover is absolutely gorgeous, but I also think that what I've heard about it makes it sound really interesting, so I'm just gonna, so for one, part of the blurb is basically just The Witcher meets Squid Game in this Malaysian Chinese-inspired epic fantasy novel where a debt-ridden slum dog joins an illegal monster fighting arena for some fast coin, but quickly learns the most dangerous beasts are outside the ring. That just sounds really interesting. I don't know much more. I prefer not to read full synopses, but that just has me very intrigued. So that's also on my anticipated release list. Up next, we have The Prince Without Sorrow by Maitri Vijaskara. I hope I'm saying that somewhat right. This is expected on the 27th of March, and it's also a fantasy debut. And just for the little bit of the blurb, welcome to the Ran Empire, where winged serpents fly through the skies, giant leopards prowl the earth, and witches burn blue as they die. A prince born into violence, a witch seeking revenge, a curse that will change the world. Drawing on inspiration from the Mauryan Empire of ancient India, debut author Maitri Vijaskara plunges readers into the first amazing book of the Obsidian Throne trilogy. I think that sounds really interesting. I've read a bit more of the synopsis, but I'm not going to read too much here, but it sounds very interesting, and I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm really sorry if I keep looking off camera, weirdly, but my cat is going through one of her I am a crazy cat running around everywhere, scratching everything. So I'm sorry if you can hear her occasionally, but either way, I'm finding her a bit distracting. And next up, we have a book that I'm very, very excited for. This is the continuation of a series that I read for the first time last year, and I'm very excited for the next book, and that would be A Brief History of Chronomancy by Andrew Rowe. This is the 6th book in the Arcane Ascension series. It's, as far as I know, expected to release on the 2nd of April, but from a blog post from Andrew Rowe in the beginning of March, it might be moved a week. I'm not sure if that's going to end up happening or not, but either way, it's close. I'm very excited. If you don't know Arcane Ascension, it's basically it's a progression fantasy following Corin, who how to explain. So basically when kids reach a certain age, they go into a spire where they might be granted a magical ability, and Corin does not receive the magical ability he was hoping for or what his family was hoping for, but he is incredibly smart and he figures out a lot of ways to use this to his advantage despite what he expected from it. There's a lot of focus on how the magic works and like the details and like the science behind the magic, and I know that's not for everyone. I personally really love that. I also really feel that Corin is super relatable as a character, and I also know that that's not true for everyone, but for me, I just find him quite relatable, and I really enjoyed the first 5 books in the series, so I can't wait for the next one. Next up, we have A Song of Legends Lost by M.H. Allende, and this is expected on the 8th of April. This is another debut fantasy release, and I'll just again read a bit of a blurb. An unforgettable tale of revenge and rebellion unfolds when a reckless king implements an ill-fated plan to end a 1,000-year war in this relentlessly gripping epic fantasy debut. A song of rebellion, a song of war, a song of legends lost. Again, I don't necessarily want to know too much more. This sounds super interesting. The cover is absolutely gorgeous. I look forward to reading this book. Next, we have another debut, which is Forged for Destiny by Andrew Knighton. This is expected on the 15th of April, and kind of the tagline for this is a heroic fantasy with a chosen one twist, and the blurb basically goes, Raoul has a destiny, claim his birthright as the last surviving heir of King Balbanus, and lead his conquered people to freedom. And then I read a bit of the summary, and it basically sounds like he's been raised to believe he's the chosen one with all of these signs there, but all these signs might have been forged by his parents. I don't know, this sounds quite interesting, like as it said, like a twist on the chosen one. So I'm interested to read it and see where they go with it. Yeah, it sounds super interesting. So I look forward to reading that as well. Next on the list, we have The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. This is also expected on the 15th of April. Now, this isn't a debut, but it is the beginning of a new trilogy, and it sounds quite interesting. So the blurb is, she might win the throne, she might destroy an empire. Either way, it begins with murder. So by the summary, it sounds like it's kind of a tournament setup or a competition setup where there are a certain amount of contenders when one of them is murdered, and then our main character has to investigate this murder. I don't know much more about it, but from what I've heard, it's kind of a twist on what you expect. It sounds pretty cool, so I am looking forward to reading it. Up next, we have The Witch Road by Kate Elliott, expected to release on the 10th of June. This is the first book in a duology, and this sounds like it follows Ellen, who was once a child slave and is now a courier, and she is assigned to guide an arrogant prince and his entourage through the witch roads, I assume, fraught with danger, which sounds super interesting. I also really like the cover. There's something about the colors that just speak to me, I think. Next up, we have a new release from a much beloved author, and that would be Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V. Schwab. This is also expected on the 10th of June, and the blurb of this is, 3 young women, their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tangling like roots. One grows high, and one grows deep, and one grows wild, and all of them grow teeth. That sounds super cool. It sounds atmospheric and spooky, and I don't know, it sounds very interesting. There are a lot of V. Schwab books, and I haven't read that many of them, but what I have read, I've enjoyed a lot, and this sounds very interesting, so I can't wait for this. Next up, we have another new book from a beloved author, and that would be Katabasis by Arv Kwong. This is expected on the 26th of August, and this basically sounds like it follows 2 academic rivals who must travel to hell to rescue the soul of their advisor, and it's described as 2025's most unexpected love story. I'm intrigued. I've read both the Poppy War trilogy and Babel, and I've thoroughly enjoyed both, so I'm very much looking forward to this. Next up, we have The Court of the Dead by Rick Riordan and Mark Oshiro. This is the second book in the Nico D'Angelo adventures. This is expected on the 23rd of September. Now, I just read the first book in the Nico D'Angelo adventures in January, I think, and I enjoyed that a lot. This is, of course, part of the Percy Jackson universe, and I've always really liked Nico, so I enjoyed that book, and I'm looking forward to the next one. But it's really hard to say anything about it without spoiling any books. So I'll leave it at that. And then last on my list, for now at least, we have Brigands and Breadknives by Travis Baldry. This is the second book in Legends and Latte. Of course, there is also Bookshops and Bone Dusts, but that's a prequel. This is expected on the 11th of November. I really enjoyed Legends and Latte. I enjoyed Bookshops and Bone Dust even more. And in this second book, as far as I know, we follow the bookseller Fern from Bookshops and Bone Dust, so I'm very much looking forward to reading about that. Though that book is still quite a ways off. November is quite far away, and my PhD deadline is in December, so will I actually read it when it comes out? We will see. I have my doubts. So those were some of the book releases that I am highly anticipating this year. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch that I either haven't heard of or that I've forgotten, or maybe there are parts of series where I haven't read any of the series, so I decided not to put them on the list, or I'm not up to date on the series. But if you have any books that you're highly anticipated that I didn't mention, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I can always use more book recommendations for my ever-growing TBR. Either way, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!